Monty, I might start with you, if that's okay. I think I referred to you as the maverick inside the something like that. inside Telstra. Yeah. On paper, when you read, from NAB to Telstra, you don't naturally think about groundbreaking innovation, launching products in 3 months. Tell us about what it's like to be an entrepreneur inside the corporate world.
Well, it's tough going, to be honest. I have a theory that companies are changed by the edge, but run by the centre. And once you realise that inside a company that the scale of the organisation isn't necessarily a change agent on its own, you basically just have to behave and disrupt from within the organisation. And I think it's much easier to do that from inside because you have access to and can connect with people who are like-minded. But it's emotionally draining at times, to be honest, when something is just so resistant to change that it doesn't know how to cope with it. But align with the right people, connect with people who want to be part of that change. They don't necessarily have brave enough or kind of maverick enough to start it off their own bat and just do what you think's right. But it has its ups and downs. It's not always good.
Yeah. We hear on our side of the fence when we talk to other corporates that, and it's 100% true, that Telstra is considered, very much held up in lights as a pioneer in facing up to the need for true digital transformation. I had the pleasure of hearing David Thodey speak at the summit last year, obviously outgoing. However, it was very clear that he was, perhaps as passionate as you about this. Do you think that you have to have a David Thodey at the top? In other words, does it have to come from the top for this kind of organisational change to happen? Or can a team like yours come in and transform any business?
And I think it helps a lot, and the leadership of David and his personal advocacy of our digital transformation is a massive head start. However, what a group of people did at NAB with the creation of Ubank was an example at the opposite end of the scale. It was a management team, board and executive group who, to be honest, on balance thought the internet was for teenagers when we launched a direct bank. And so it helps a lot. And we'll miss David when he goes onto his next career step, but we're incredibly fortunate to have an internal successor within the organisation in Andy Penn, our CFO, who will take over in May as the CEO. And I don't think it's not a common thing in big business to have a CEO successor within a $77 billion telecommunications company. So that's a massive head start. He was part of building our strategy, and we'll continue that in that direction.
Brilliant. Daniel, it's interesting you have come through the PayPal machine, and although definitely the broader eBay business is obviously it's a digital business, but it's a bit of a grandpa when it comes to being digital businesses, and now you've got this exposure to Braintree. How's the startup mentality culture of Braintree being? Is it being consumed or integrated? Are you influencing the other part of the business, or is the other part of the business influencing Braintree?
Oh, look, to be honest, I think it's a pretty fair partnership on both sides. I think PayPal brings some credibility in enterprise that's pretty incredible, and Braintree brings some next generation mobile first businesses that are pretty exciting to PayPal, the Ubers, the Airbnbs. So I actually think that the partnership's going really well, and certainly I don't think that people always like the black and white. There are challenges, and then there's vastly more opportunities. So it's been a really exciting part, and I think that whilst I think PayPal as a whole has been a huge advocate. I think internally they do really well at rolling out great products on the whole, and they're a very impressive business overall. And I think that the vision to purchase, I guess, an internal disruptor is a pretty strong one.
Yeah, absolutely. To Ben, when we first met, and this was my comments when we sat down before. You do really have a resume that has the big brands on it. I think you told me that your dad said, just go out and get a resume with killer brands on it, and must say he must be very proud. But the transition from particularly working in the US to go, forgive me if I get in the wrong order, but Stanford, McKinsey, Goldman, Envato, which, by the way, as you know, I often say is the great Melbourne startup, but it must be a fundamentally different shift for you. Tell us a little bit more about how you made the shift and why you made the shift, and did it live up to your expectations from a career point of view?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I first started at Envato, I didn't know what to expect. I've never actually worked in a non-professional services company. Day one, I did my standard McKinsey thing and started to draw an issue tree and built a big 300-page pack for my own consumption. Ever since then, I've banned PowerPoint from my staff. But to think about how I then transitioned, in being in a company, and especially being in a digital company that's always trying to push the barriers, it's really important to have an idea, do some very quick back of the envelope analysis, and then push it out and iterate on it, right? And just test, product, customer. And I remember back in my other jobs, I used to do months and months of analysis and then stakeholder manage, whether it's a telco or a bank or an airline. And it would take 3 months, 6 months just to persuade the management team to do something. And then 6 to 12 months later, if you're lucky, it would actually happen. And so, another example I use often is price change. When you do a price change in a grocery retailer, you actually physically have to change each price. And so you can't test that. You can't just test it overnight. And you have to wait till the next cycle. Whereas on an online business, you can action that straight away. It might take an hour or two, but like all your prices globally have a different price, and you can optimize. So in terms of my transition, it was critical for me to drop kind of what I've learnt from the professional services background that I had, and focus on quick iterations, because I think that's what you see. All the great companies out there that are moving the needle, and they're all about quick tests.
Nice. I think it can kind of lead on to a question from the audience. And by the way, we're taking questions from the audience via the Twitter handle here, which I have in front of me. Apologies if I don't get to them all, because there will be a few. For you, Monty, I think this is for you, Monty, although you guys may have a view on this.
We can all have a go. We can all have a go.
Everyone can have a crack. It is open mic night. How do you grow a team from 10 to 50, let alone 400? And I know you've done it very quickly. And that question comes from Tony Chilvers.
Thanks, Tony. So the short answer is it's tough work. And we talked about this kind of exodus to different markets that are perceived as greener pastures, such as Silicon Valley and the like. The first thing is establishing a baseline culture and behavioural expectations in the team. And that's quite often difficult to do because they're not necessarily your own behaviours or values that you need to be perfectly aligned in the team that you're building. So we did that at Telstra. It was the first thing we did when we created Telstra Digital, and we said, well, what do we stand for? And there's a whole bunch of those values that were core to the team, and ones that we thought that we need to identify. So we built a values-based team. We brought in people. We worked with like-minded partners, such as IE, and we also did business partnerships to bring a bit of, to be honest, a bit of digital kudos to 120-year-old telcos. So Daniel and I first met, we put PayPal on Telstra's website as a bill payment option, and people were saying, "You guys are insane, what are you putting PayPal on?" And I said, well, we're trying to ask the best people in digital in this country to come and work with us, and we're we're accepting Diners Club on our website for bills. It's like, let's actually behave and act like a company that in a digital sense people want to be part of. We took our social media service seriously. We launched it 24/7. It's for over 3.5 years we offered 24/7 service, and because we wanted to hire the people that experienced that, so we wanted to behave and deliver experiences to market that people took seriously and realised, well, hey, these guys, they're not just messing around. There's not some group of people sock puppeting the company here. They're serious about the change they're creating. So creating an environment, and then real estate and a bit of fun on the side. So what you think Telstra might be from the outside is very different. So those of you who have seen our offices, they're not grey partitions with worn carpet and expensive office chairs, although I think there's a few of those floating around. But and there's no offices, there's no titles. Can you imagine? On the first meeting I went to when I joined Telstra, everyone said, this is the new director of so-and-so. And I said, well, no, I'm just running the digital team, mate. And they go around the room, I'm the director of this, I'm the executive of this. You're like, I don't want your business card, I've got it. What do you do? And that's one of our values. The values is be known for what you're here to do and deliver.
I went up to PwC's office in Sydney, and they have a small incubator up there in that enormous office, and they've sort of decked it out in the vein that you would expect an environment like that. And one of the some guy from another part of the business came down, got lost. He was looking for a meeting room that he'd booked, and he walked in and he said, "My God, I didn't know we had daycare here." As a true statement, he actually thought he'd walked into a.
We're working on that. We're working on daycare, but it's just seize that opportunity, right? We talked about earlier the opportunity of gender balance and broader diversity. So we're serious about that. We're trying to launch a daycare service to help bring new female talent into our business, to bring back and make it easier for our female team members who become mums for the first time or subsequent time to come back to the office, because we can't build technology solutions for 23 million people with a few middle-aged white guys around the team. So we believe in that very strongly.
Yeah, no, I think it's true of all organisations that we have an obligation to, particularly around the diversity issue, to push ahead with it too. So it's an excellent point there. I think I've got a question here for you, Ben, and then I'll come back to Daniel in a moment. From Dean Flynn, you go against the trend of the 80-plus hour work week in startups. Do you feel the pressure to conform? Or do you just leave the team of 30 that work for you there to do the
No, actually, at Envato, we're quite lucky. So we're now at 250 people large, and I don't think we're a small startup anymore. In terms of hours, I think I work probably the longest hours of anyone, and I do 50 to 60 hours maximum. My group of 30 certainly do not do anything close to that, although I try. And the challenge really is to how can we push things out in a more efficient way, and it's cutting out the non-required tasks, and being focused. And if I think back to my McKinsey days in my first stint. When I went to Taiwan, there was a massive pressure to do 80, 100 hours. And I drew a very solid line that said, I can achieve a great career on the trading floor for 60 hours, therefore I'm not doing more than 60 hours at McKinsey. And that was my BATNA, right? My option out. in Melbourne we were doing, Friday 4 p.m. drinks, and then I got to Taiwan, and the manager calls a meeting at 7 p.m. on Friday. So I'm not really happy about this meeting. And at the end of the meeting, she said, "Okay, so by Sunday," and I was like, "Stop. Whatever you're about to say is not going to happen. Right? By Sunday, whatever you say is out the door." And I just held a very hard line. And meanwhile, my teammates would crank on and do it. And I just made sure I focused on answering the right problem. And the whole 80-20 rule is key to my life.
I heard a Goldman Sachs story the other day of some guys that were brought into the office and told that it's a very, very important meeting and you must be here for it. It was a holiday weekend and the meeting was at 6 o'clock on a Friday. And they're like, "Oh, God." And they said, "Don't move. You've got to make sure a very important person's coming down here." 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, they're still sitting there. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. By this stage, a couple of them are just gone, "I'm out of here." The boss just walks in and goes, "This is dedication." Fired the 3 people that had left and then told them all to go home. Sounds like a great place.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Love where you were.
Daniel, I think your background is really interesting for a lot of people, and I want to come back to that in a second, obviously coming back as an engineer and then really moving into the business and sales side of the business. But before we get into that, I think there's a question here, and I'll paraphrase because I can't see where it is right now. In regards to payments and I think its role within digital going forward, I think it's a really interesting area because I don't think anyone could have thought payments were sexy. But I think there's no question when you look at Braintree, I often refer to Braintree's role with Uber in particular. A lot of people can talk about the UX and design of the application, but I think without the Braintree solution behind it, you wouldn't have had that frictionless experience that makes it so easy to think you're actually not paying to be driven around town, which is what I'm always thinking. Maybe you can just enlighten us a little more about some of the exciting stuff that's happening that you guys are doing, and even more so open up about the opportunities that other people have to working with Braintree, because I know we're really excited to bake your product into a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think the best example, if everyone who owns a smartphone in the room can raise their hand. That's 100%. So in a crowd like this, that's an easy question to ask. But I think the concept of frictionless payment is made essential by the growth of mobile. If I asked everyone in the room to put their hand up if they've ever abandoned a purchase because they got sick of filling out a form on a mobile, and it auto-corrected your address about 16 times, it would be 100% as well, most probably in this room. So I think that the exciting things that Uber do, and the concept of tokenization, which has been around for a long time, but next generation mobile businesses like Uber, Airbnb take to the next level, and enterprises like Telstra are absolutely executing really effectively, is that consumers want to buy, they don't want to pay. And consumers have expectations, particularly around the limitations of those devices. And so I think that the exciting part of payments is disappearing. I think the other exciting part of payments is that some of that complexity that previously really was painful for either a retailer or any particular business, they're like, it's slowing me down. I want to launch my new app. I'm excited about this app. I've got a loyal customer base that I want to have a conversation with. But this payments thing in this app is really painful. How do I code it? My partner, the marketing agency that's building the app's never done payments before.
Obviously wasn't us.
It obviously wasn't you, but this is a really common pain point. So I think that these next generation consumer experiences really do preempt what consumers want, and they disappear, they get out of the way. That's in retail, and in other places you don't want to get out of the way entirely. You want to be just in the way enough for the customer to make that conscious decision to make that transaction. I know that businesses like Telstra would be one of those. You probably don't want to tokenise your payment and get billed into the future forever. You want to have nice, clear delineation. But on the whole, yeah, it's around that mobile trend, and I think that the devices that are the proliferation of mobile, I think it's 5 times more of those get sold than desktops now. It's and growing. It's where it's at.
Yeah, I know we're baking in the Braintree. Baking in Braintree into Foyer, which Dean mentioned before, to enable people to actually be, browsing products in a store on screen and shortlisting products, sending it to their phone, one-click or frictionless payment, and suddenly all those things that we all dreamed about that were super clunky. We used to do a whole bunch of stuff with SMS, push notifications and things. All the ideas have been there. I think what's really exciting is it's all starting to come to life. Another quick question. Well, this one you definitely should know the answer to, since you're such a fan. When will PayPal and Braintree start accepting Bitcoin in Australia?
So in Australia, so Braintree already accepts Bitcoin. We have a global partnership with a few Bitcoin marketplaces such as Coinbase. It's coming to Australia. There's some regulatory challenges, but we're working on it. So I can't say precisely when. But I think that the concept of, on the general trend of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, I think that they're particularly exciting. I think particularly for a nerd like myself to get to the basics and understand that a lot of the challenges with the existing financial networks is the concept of trust, the concept of identity, and the costs that are required to manage those networks. I mean, when we think about it, we're literally making transactions with this big, long, user-unfriendly number that has existed on these cards since they were invented, to a new world where identity, your token, is the generation of that payment, and cryptocurrencies really remove that middleman. So I think it's going to be an exciting future for cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. We're excited to launch it when it's ready here in Australia. And I think that you probably won't use it that much to buy your coffees, but there are general use cases such as sending money internationally where there's actually a lot of legitimate pain points right now that Bitcoin lowers the barrier. And if you're in a market that your bank's printing money, exactly, there's a lot of pain points. And if you're in a market in the world where your central bank's printing more money than it and creating hyperinflation, then concepts like the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoins become a lot more relevant. Australia probably won't be the first market. We've got a great financial system and a great regulatory system, so we probably won't be the first to see a massive amount of consumer uptake. The other parts of the world will.
Is Telstra going to be adding Bitcoin?
To speak to our treasurer about that. We probably will. If we accept PayPal payment, I'm sure we'll be happy to take whatever currency at some stage. There's just a quick plug for CoinJar, which is an Australian startup, a Melbourne-based startup, Asher Tan and Ryan over there on Queen Street. I think they won the Best in Show at Finovate Europe maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. So if you want to trade Bitcoin in Australia, head to coinjar.com and get involved. I think I bought a couple of coins the other day and got 12% in 3 days. Yes! Winning. I'll probably lose 40% tonight.
But these cryptocurrencies, are they just gambling platforms? Are we being had?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. No, sorry, I'm not working in banking anymore.
To finish off, I just want to say, if you could give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would just say jump in the deep end or bite off more than you can chew and chew like crazy. It took me a while before I gained the confidence to do that, and that I think is the best piece of advice for me.
I'd say to my 20-year-old self, spend more money, you tight ass. Oh, gosh. Seriously, I think it would be take more risk. So I look at my career and it was a very safe path. Went to a brand name, went to a brand name school, went to brand name, and now I've taken that leap, and I've loved the leap. Right? I thought my happiness levels at those other jobs were, say, 80 to 90 out of 100, and if I use that same scale at Envato, I'm now at 120, 150. Right? It's just off the charts, and I wish I had taken more risk earlier on in my career.
Wow. Yeah, I can relate to the risk. Just travel at every possible opportunity, because you will always learn more when you're out of your home and comfort zone. Yeah, I travel a lot, but I always would love to travel more, and I think you're just learning so much, and your senses are at their most heightened awareness when you're not at home.
Nice one. Ben, your comment reminded me of a joke we had internally just last week, and I'm looking at you, David Hodges, of people that work at Bain. And it's like you said to your friend who works at Bain, how are you? It's like, oh yeah, I'm great. Haven't slept in 4 weeks. My girlfriend just left me, but I've got an amazing penthouse in Double Bay. Shame I've never seen it.
McKinsey folk in the front.
That was for your benefit, Paul. Just thought you'd like to know your mate said it. Last question for the night, and I think it's the big one, and I think it's a question that everybody cares about hearing from leaders like you guys. Where do you think we should be looking for the big next wave of opportunity and disruption?
It's a topic I love, mobile. We haven't even scratched the surface of what's possible there. I think that, again, at the risk of being on trend, the smartphone unlocks so much data that if you use safely, if you use it and cut the customer into that value proposition, don't just take their data and monetize it, sell stuff back to them, cut them into the value proposition. I think that that's going to be required. I think that the combination of a smartphone and better data science is where I'm most excited. It's where I read the most. It's where, if I was to do a startup, it would be. I'm really excited about that space.
One of the spaces I love is the DIY space, so the do-it-yourself. And 10 years ago, if you want to build a website, you'd have to get an agency or a freelancer to do it for you. Nowadays, everyone in this room can go on Wix, Weebly, Squarespace and build your own website from scratch just by dragging things around. And we're seeing a massive wave in the DIY space. Everything from websites to animated videos to image builders to flight. So I just see this space exploding, and we're trying to get on top of it.
Two things. The first is the Internet of Things, or overused acronym. So the connected everything, and the second thing relates to that, which is how we use that to tackle the aging population. So sensors and advancements in consumer technology, which can now be connected, have a direct role to play in protecting in a sustainable way the ageing population on Earth. So things we can connect now and what we can do with them can make people stay or enable people to stay in their homes, not be shuffled off to some nursing home somewhere. So that's really exciting. It excites me personally. And
excellent, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. On that note, I think I know that hopefully you guys are happy to stick around and have a beer or two, and I've no doubt there'll be lots of other people who enjoy the chance to chat to you, maybe a little more one-on-one. So very much appreciated. Just before I finish saying thanks to you guys, I just want to obviously call out both Ruth and Jess for organising a brilliant night for us tonight. Thank you so much. A couple of other people, you can't not thank Charlie, just so you know. Charlie used to work for us. He just comes back for all the parties. And he is our resident DJ for all of our events. So thank you so much, Charlie, again. Though they're not in the room, obviously want to thank the guys who did fabulous job of setting up our sound and lighting guys, did fantastic job, and I'll add to that the terrific food truck guys who've managed to come here late at night and supply us with some sensational burgers. So thanks to them as well. Much appreciated. Most importantly, on behalf of our agency, I want to thank our three incredible speakers. I think it's amazing to get three people of your calibre sitting on a couch together, openly sharing your experience. So I really enjoyed it. Thanks, guys. Absolutely, yeah. And of course, to all of you guys, this is the beginning of a journey for us. We're really, really proud of our first Silicon Block party. We want Silicon Block to come to mean something. We're setting up a site for it. There's a LinkedIn group which we'll share with all of you. And it's an opportunity, I think, for us, as I said, to start to bridge the gap between Richmond and Collins Street. I think there's a big opportunity to do that. It's also a big opportunity to have a little bit of fun and have a party.